On WDET, I'm Robin Vincent. It's no secret Detroit's arenas are packed with fans and money on game day. But for the workers who make it all run, they say the payoff often doesn't match the hustle. The Detroit Industry Standards Board of Arena Workers has been meeting to discuss challenges people working at Little Caesars Arena, Comerica Park, and Ford Field are facing. They're nearing the end of the process and are gearing up to submit recommendations to improve working conditions at professional sporting events and concerts in Detroit. Now, the process shows the different needs of workers and employers. A letter from Ilitch Sports and Entertainment said compensation is not the primary motivation of workers. But Professor Kes Ballantyne, who conducted 2 surveys of Detroit arena workers, said many work multiple jobs.
There was a mention that compensation is not the primary need for these workers. I've heard this multiple times that from employer stakeholders that these jobs aren't a primary source of income for these workers, and I have not found that in either survey.
Producer Jack Philbrandt spoke with Detroit documenters Ashley Williams and Noah Kincaid to learn more. Jack started by asking Noah about the role that industry standard boards play.
They exist to kind of research a specific industry, talk to the workers in that industry, find out what kind of issues they're facing, and then come up with a list of recommendations on how the standards within that industry for those workers can be improved.
How are these industry standards boards established?
The process is it's actually pretty straightforward, fairly simple, and seems a bit like easily attainable. So the rules in Detroit are that if you work in an industry or you just know of an industry that you think could benefit from an industry standards board, you can download a petition form off the city's website. You can circulate that petition, and you need to get 150 signatures from workers within that industry saying, yes, I would like there to be an industry standards board forum to look into my industry. So in this case that we're talking about, it was sports arena workers. Someone, I think it can be anyone, circulated that petition. They got at least 150 sports arena workers to sign the petition. The petition then is sent to the city's Office of Civil Rights Inclusion and Opportunity, CREO for short. And they kind of verify that those 150 petitioners that signed that are real people. They exist. They do work in the industry. And then they send their approval to City Council, and City Council has to then form an industry standards board to look into that industry.
Ashley, what's the main concern of arena workers?
It really boiled down to 3 major concerns or topics. One was definitely wages. The second one was transportation, getting to and from their job. And the third one was security and safety. And so when it comes to wages, we heard from several of the arena workers that they either work multiple arena jobs, so they might work, at both LCA and Comerica or some combination of the arenas, different seasons for different schedules. And then, several others did mention that the arena job is maybe their second or sometimes even third job. And so when it came to wages, they were really just saying, we can't afford to live on just this, this salary or this wage. The second one was transportation, and that concern was really around public transit and the inconsistencies that exist within the public transit system. So either, schedules, buses being late or not meeting their planned route schedules, or just the inconvenience of having to hop from one route to the next and that how long that takes. And so I remember one individual specifically said that she left her house 2 or 3 hours before her shift started just to account for changing routes or, late buses. And so that was a major concern, and a lot of workers did echo that same concern. And then kind of also tying into transportation, but the other third major concern was security and safety. And so there kind of is two different parts to this. One is, workers who need to get to and from their personal vehicles, whether, maybe their vehicle is parked in a parking lot that's not super close to the arena, so they have to make that walk back and forth, sometimes early morning, late at night, in the dark, don't always feel very safe and secure doing so. But then there's also the workers who do use public transit and often need to wait at those stops alone in the dark, late at night, early in the morning. And, they did mention, there is, police presence a lot of the time for these, on event days and during, before, during, and after the games, or other events, I should say. But there also, it doesn't always account for the workers who are still at the arenas, even when the quote unquote lights shut off and all the guests leave. So there still is concern for those individuals who are there much later or much earlier than the guests. So those are the top three things that we heard consistently.
Noah, I want to kind of pin down the wages concern a little bit. There are restrictions in Michigan that make it challenging to improve this specific area, the wages. Could you talk about this?
Yeah, it's not just that they make it challenging, they make it illegal, actually, for Detroit to improve wages, at least like things like the minimum wage or the prevailing wage. These are called preemption laws, and they're enacted by states. There's like 46 states have these on the books. And basically, they void any local ordinances that would establish standards that are different than those of the state. So this is a way that legislators and the governor have passed laws to block labor laws that would otherwise be enacted at the city or county level. So in Michigan, we have 6 of these preemption laws on the books regarding labor. That prevent, say if Detroit wanted to have a higher minimum wage, let's say, than the rest of the state, they're not allowed to do that. So the laws they are not allowed to really touch or enact on their own include minimum wage, fair scheduling, project labor agreements, paid leave, prevailing wage, and issues related to the gig economy. Now, in Michigan, these were all enacted between 2012 and 2016 under Governor Snyder, and as much as Detroit may want to increase the minimum wage for these workers, that's not something that they can legally do at this moment.
Ashley, what are some of the recommendations the board is making that City Council could act on?
The first topic that the board suggested revolves around childcare. And so one of the concerns around childcare was that these events that happen at the arenas that require the workers to be there are really outside of what you would call like a normal working hour schedule. They're often late in the evening and require workers to stay much later. And so childcare is an issue for many workers. So one of the proposals or suggestions that the board made was to offer some incentivized childcare options, making it easier for the arena workers to have access to childcare. We learned there's some definite childcare shortages in the area, and so that makes it challenging as well. So incentivizing childcare options. Transportation was another one that I mentioned as a top concern, and so they suggest that City Council or the Mayor's office tries to offer vouchers or some sort of incentive for workers to use public transportation. They also mentioned increased security, whether that be police presence or private security hired by the arena themselves. And then they also suggested that the city conducts a transit needs assessment that really focuses on downtown workers and the neighborhoods that they live in, and how those two things may or may not exactly work together at this point in time, and what they can do to improve that transit for the workers. They also, suggested some more like on-the-job type training, and what they're calling like establishing a hiring hall, so that workers have a lot more visibility to open positions within the company, so they can have some mobility. I think one of the concerns was there's not really an opportunity for upward growth, or they don't really feel like they know what else is out there other than the current job that they're in. So establishing a hiring hall would be something that would be able to help facilitate that and help employees feel like they have more opportunities to either move around or just, know what else is out there for them. Another area that they talked about in their proposal was safety, of course. And, we heard that a lot of arena workers often, said that they didn't really feel safe. And so the board is recommending establishing a worker health and safety council, and also advanced security in the parking lots and transit stops, which I kind of mentioned in the transportation recommendation, and then also enhanced security training for employees that focuses on de-escalation. So if they do find themselves in a situation, they feel they can be equipped to maybe navigate whatever that situation might be.
Detroit documenter Ashley Williams and Noah Kincaid. They were speaking with producer Jack Philbrandt about how to improve conditions for arena workers in Detroit. We'll be right back on the Metro. Stay with us.